What's up Guardians, Exotic here and welcome to the channel. With Season of the Deep arriving, Arc builds have surged from the depths and are now one of the featured subclasses thanks to all the incredible artifact mods that provide fantastic synergy and huge power spikes to the Arc subclass. In today's video, I'll be showing you a super fun Insurmountable Skullfort Arc Titan build that transforms you into the Lord of Thunder. If you're a fan of chaining lethal lightning strikes through hordes of enemies with practically unlimited powered melees, healing, and jolting, then this is the build for you. So sit back and enjoy the video. The centerpiece of this build revolves around the exotic helmet and Insurmountable Skullfort, which grants health regeneration and full melee energy upon Arc melee kills. This exotic addresses the lack of healing that is missing from most Arc builds and is a great addition to have within your Titan's arsenal. Along with this helmet, we will be pairing it with the Thunderclap Arc melee for nearly unlimited melee ability spam as our main source of damage and ad clear. Thunderclap allows us to charge up and release a blast of arc energy in front of us that deals more damage the longer we charge it. You could opt for Seismic Strike here if you really wanted, but with the recent nerfs, it is no longer the unlimited movement spam powerhouse it used to be. Thunderclap will be the better option in PvE as it does 44% more damage than Seismic Strike at full charge, and it has a larger area of effect, allowing us to deal higher burst damage to enemies. In the theme of dealing more burst damage, our super of choice is going to be Thunder Crash, which enables us to hurl ourselves into the air and smash into enemies, dealing massive damage to bosses and champions. For our class ability, we will be opting with Thruster as it has the lowest cooldown, which will be important for our mod setup later in the video. It can also provide us with a little movement, which is an added bonus. Moving on to aspects, our first aspect in this build will be Touch of Thunder, which will buff our pulse grenades to make them even stronger. With this aspect equipped, our pulse grenades will deal more damage over time and create ionic traces as they deal damage to targets. Ionic traces are auto-seeking arc bolts that refund 12.5% grenade and melee energy and 15% class ability energy on pickup. Our second aspect, Knockout, allows our melees to become infused with arc energy, increasing our melee range, damage, and provide us with health regeneration upon defeating enemies for additional survivability. In addition to our first aspect, Touch of Thunder buffing our grenades, our first fragment, Spark of Magnitude, will also buff our grenades by extending the duration of our pulse grenades from about 3.75 seconds to 5 seconds. Our second fragment, Spark of Shock, will allow our grenades to jolt targets for even more exceptional ad clear. Our third fragment, Spark of Feedback, will buff our outgoing melee damage by 70% upon taking melee damage ourselves, allowing us to have an easier time defeating targets with our uncharged melee. And remember, when paired with Knockout, our uncharged melees get infused with arc energy, practically providing us with a mini charged melee that grants us health regeneration upon melee kills. And finally, our fourth fragment, Spark of Resistance, gives us more survivability through an added 25% extra damage resistance while surrounded by 3 or more enemies. This also provides a nice plus 10 stat to strength in this melee focused build. Our abilities will get buffed even further through our NPA Repulsion Regulator seasonal artifact. With this build, you're going to want to equip the authorized arc and melee mods to allow us more freedom with our armor mods. We're also going to want to equip electric armor and amped up for increased amplified duration from 15 to 20 seconds and an additional damage resistance while amplified. And my personal favorite in the third column, you absolutely want to slap on Thunderous Retort to gain increased bonus super damage if cast while amplified or critically wounded. Lucky for us, we will be constantly amplified with this build, so get ready to one-shot champions and tough combatants. To round out the artifact mods, we will be equipping Lightning Strikes twice for additional grenade regeneration after throwing a grenade, and Shock and Awe. Shock and Awe summons a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets while we are amplified. With this build, you can really use any weapons that you want, but I would highly recommend any arc weapon that has the ability to jolt targets, like the Ikilos SMG or the new seasonal exotic, the Centrifuge. The Centrifuge is an exceptional option here as it causes arc explosions and blinds targets at full electrostatic charge. It also plays nicely into our first armor mod starting on the helmet, which is a copy of Harmonic Siphon, allowing us to create orbs of power on rapid arc weapon final blows. We'll also definitely want to equip a copy of Hands On for extra super energy on this melee focused build. To round out the helmet, we'll be utilizing a copy of Heavy Ammo Finder for extra heavy firepower during our endeavors as the Lord of Thunder. On the gloves, we're going to want to equip a copy of Heavy Handed for orbs of power upon powered melee final blows, Momentum Transfer for extra melee cooldown while dealing damage with grenades, and Impact Induction for reduced grenade cooldown while dealing damage with a melee attack for seamless ability spam. On the chest, feel free to equip any damage resistance mods based on the activity you are running. Jumping over to our leg mods, you'll want to equip a copy of Invigoration for reduced melee cooldown on Orb of Power pickup, along with Absolution for reduced cooldown on all abilities on Orb of Power pickup. For the last slot on the legs, you can go with Recuperation for a chunk of health on Orb of Power pickup for extra survivability in tougher activities. On the class item, you'll want to rock a copy of Outreach for reduced melee cooldown when using our class ability, which is important to have in case we whiff our melee or do not get the killing blow. To aid our class ability regen, we'll want a utility kickstart as well to help get our thruster back so we can use it to get our melee back as fast as possible, which synergizes perfectly with momentum transfer and impact induction on the gloves. And finally, you'll want to use a copy of Reaper to gain an orb of power upon our weapon final blows after using our class ability. And one final note, obviously just remember to equip stat mods across all your armor pieces based on your needs and choosing, but for this build I would prioritize resilience, strength, and discipline in that order. So now that you have your subclass setup, mods, and weapons, it's time to learn how to use it. Our main gameplay loop is really quite simple as we'll be spamming our Thunderclap as much as possible thanks to Transfusion Matrix on our exotic helmet. Just make sure to land the killing blow on your Thunderclap to gain a full recharge, and if you need to, prep the enemies for melee death by shooting them a little first and or holding down your powered melee to charge your Thunderclap for maximum damage. If you do not get the killing blow with your Thunderclap, make sure to use your thruster and toss a grenade to proc Outreach and Momentum Transfer, along with picking up orbs to help get your melee back as soon as possible. Do not be afraid to go to town with your uncharged melee here either if you don't have your Thunderclap, as our uncharged melee also procs Impact Induction for chunks of grenade energy while boxing combatants. And since we have Heavy Handed on 2, we'll spawn an Orb of Power to give us a chunk of melee energy upon pickup. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Lord of Thunder Insurmountable Skullfort Arc Titan build for Season of the Deep. For your convenience, I have a Destiny Item Manager link in the description so you can equip this loadout to your character with a single click, assuming you own all the subclass items featured in the build. Feel free to like and comment if you enjoyed this build, and if this video brought value to you, be sure to subscribe for more Destiny 2 tips, tricks, builds, and guides. Thank you for watching, and as always, have an awesome day.